The coffee was cold again. I stared at the dark liquid in my cup, wondering if this was some kind of metaphor for my life. Once hot and full of promise, now tepid and forgotten. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even fresh food look like it had been sitting out for days. "Emma, table 6 is still waiting for their check," Marcus called out from behind the counter, his voice carrying that edge of annoyance that had become his default tone with me lately. I forced myself up from my break, my feet screaming in protest. 8 hours into a 12-hour shift, and I still had 4 more to go. The worn soles of my shoes had long ago lost any cushioning they once had, but new ones would have to wait until after rent was paid, and utilities, and the minimum payment on Mom's medical bills. Table 6 was a young couple, probably on their 3rd or 4th date judging by how they still laughed at each other's jokes, but hadn't quite figured out how to sit comfortably together. They reminded me of myself and David before everything fell apart. Before I found out that working late at the office actually meant working late at his secretary's apartment. "Here's your check," I said, forcing the smile that had become second nature. "Have a wonderful evening." They left a decent tip, 15%, which was better than the usual 10 I'd been averaging lately. Every dollar counted when you were drowning in debt and barely keeping your head above water. As I cleared their table, the bell above the door chimed. I didn't bother looking up. Another customer meant another forced smile, another, "Hi, welcome to Mel's Diner. What can I get you started with today?" But then the entire diner went quiet. Not the normal lull in conversation. This was different. This was the kind of silence that happened when someone who didn't belong walked into a place like this. I turned around and immediately understood why. The man standing in the doorway looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread about billionaire CEOs who worked too hard and played too little. Charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Italian leather shoes that had never seen a puddle, let alone a grease-stained diner floor. Dark hair perfectly styled despite the wind outside. And eyes, God, those eyes, the color of steel in winter. Cold and calculating as they swept across the diner. He was scanning the room like he was looking for something, or someone. Then those eyes landed on me, and something flickered across his face. Recognition. No, that was impossible. But I'd never seen this man before in my life. I would have remembered, would have. "Can I help you?" I asked, acutely aware of the coffee stain on my uniform and the fact that I probably smelled like French fries and failure. He walked toward me with the kind of confidence that came from never having to ask permission for anything. Every step was measured, purposeful. The other waitresses watched with their mouths hanging open. Even Marcus had stopped pretending to work and was openly staring. "Emma Chen?" His voice was deep, cultured, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. My heart skipped. How did he know my name? Was this about the credit cards? Had I missed a payment? No, collection agencies didn't send men who looked like they'd just stepped off a private jet. "That's me," I said, clutching my tray like a shield. "Is there a problem?" "No problem." He reached into his jacket, and for one wild moment, I thought he was going to pull out a gun. Instead, he withdrew a business card. "My name is Alexander Blackwood. I have a business proposition for you." I stared at the card. Alexander Blackwood, CEO, Blackwood Industries. Even I knew that name. Blackwood Industries was one of those companies that seemed to have its fingers in everything. Real estate, technology, media, the kind of company that made headlines when its stock price shifted by a fraction of a percent. "I think you have the wrong person," I said, trying to hand the card back. "I'm just a waitress. I know exactly who you are, Miss Chen." He didn't take the card. "And you're exactly who I need. I'd like to offer you a job." "A job?" I laughed, but it came out more hysterical than amused. "Doing what? I barely graduated high school. The only skills I have involve carrying plates and pretending to care about people's dietary restrictions." "The job requires exactly one skill, the ability to follow directions." He glanced around the diner with barely concealed distaste. "So, the pay is $100,000 for 6 months of work." The tray slipped from my hands, clattering on the floor. $100,000. That was more than I'd make in 3 years at the diner. It would pay off Mom's medical bills, get us out of our moldy apartment, maybe even leave enough for me to go back to school. What's the catch? Because there was always a catch. Men like Alexander Blackwood didn't walk into diners and offer small fortunes to waitresses unless they wanted something specific, something that probably wasn't legal. "It's not what you're thinking." A ghost of a smile played at the corners of his mouth. "I need you to be my girlfriend." I bent down to pick up the tray, buying myself time to process what he'd just said. When I straightened up, he was still there, still watching me with those unsettling gray eyes. "Your girlfriend," I repeated flatly. "You want to pay me $100,000 to be your girlfriend?" "Precisely." "Why?" The word came out harsher than I intended. "What's wrong with you that you need to pay someone to date you?" Something flashed in his eyes. Anger? Hurt? But it was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it. "There's nothing wrong with me, Miss Chen. This is a business arrangement. I need a girlfriend for the next 6 months to facilitate certain personal matters." "You need money." "It's a simple transaction." "Nothing about this sounds simple." "Emma!" Marcus's voice cut through the tension. "If you're done socializing, we've got customers waiting." I glanced around. The diner had filled up while I'd been talking to Alexander. The other waitresses were scrambling to cover my tables, shooting me dirty looks. "I need to get back to work," I said. "You could walk out right now," Alexander said. "Give your notice and never serve another cup of coffee to another ungrateful customer." The temptation was overwhelming. To never have to smell like grease again. To never have to paste on a fake smile while someone complained that their eggs were too runny or their toast was too dark. To have money, real money, for the first time in my life. I can't just walk out. That's not how normal people handle things. "I'm not asking you to be normal, Miss Chen. I'm asking you to be smart." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "I've just transferred $5,000 to your account. Consider it a signing bonus. And if you're not interested after you've had time to think it over, keep the money. No strings attached." My phone buzzed. I pulled it out, hands shaking. The notification from my banking app showed a deposit of $5,000. Just like that. Like it was nothing. How did you... I make it my business to know everything about the people I do business with. He turned to leave, then paused. The offer stands for 24 hours. After that, I'll find someone else. He walked out, leaving me standing there with my mouth open and my phone in my hand. The diner slowly came back to life, conversations resuming, orders being called out. But I felt like I was underwater, everything muffled and distorted. What the hell was that about? Shanice, one of the other waitresses, appeared at my elbow. Was that really Alexander Blackwood? The billionaire? I think so. What did he want with you? There was an edge to her voice, jealousy already creeping in. What could I say? That he'd just offered to pay me to be his fake girlfriend? That he'd dropped $5,000 into my account, like it was pocket change? That for the first time in 2 years, since Mom got sick and David left and everything fell apart, I might have a way out? He had the wrong person, I lied. But as I went back to serving coffee and fake smiling at customers, all I could think about was that number. $100,000, 6 months of pretending to date a man who looked like he'd been carved from marble and had about as much warmth. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an unknown number. The Peninsula Hotel, Presidential Suite, tomorrow, 2 p.m. We'll discuss terms. A. I deleted the message, then immediately regretted it. What if I needed the information later? What if this was all some elaborate scam and I needed evidence? But the $5,000 in my account was real. I'd checked 3 times already, even transferred $100 to my savings just to make sure it wouldn't disappear. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. What kind of personal matters required a fake girlfriend? Was he gay and needed a cover? Was there some business deal that required him to appear stable and settled? Or was it something darker? By the time I finally clocked out at midnight, my feet were numb and my back was screaming, "Antoine." The walk to the bus stop had never felt longer. The city looked different somehow, knowing that somewhere in one of those gleaming towers, Alexander Blackwood was probably sitting in an office that cost more to decorate than most people made in a lifetime. The bus was nearly empty, just me and a few other night shift workers heading home to grab a few hours of sleep before doing it all over again. I stared at my reflection in the window, trying to figure out what a man like that could possibly want with someone like me. I wasn't beautiful. Pretty, maybe. On a good day, when I'd had enough sleep and remembered to do something with my hair. But not the kind of stunning that billionaires usually had on their arms. I was nobody special. Just another struggling waitress in a city full of them. My apartment building loomed in the darkness, all broken bricks and barred windows. The elevator was out again, so I trudged up 4 flights of stairs, keys already in my hand because you didn't linger in the hallways here. The apartment was dark and quiet. Mom had already gone to bed, but she'd left a note on the kitchen table. Saved you dinner, in the fridge. Love you. I heated up the leftover pasta, even though I wasn't hungry, and as I ate, I pulled out my laptop and did what any sensible person would do. I Googled Alexander Blackwood, The images that loaded made my mouth go dry. He was even more attractive in professional photos, if that was possible. There were pictures of him at charity galas, business conferences, art openings, always alone. I noticed. Never with a date. The articles painted a picture of a man who'd built an empire from nothing. Parents died when he was 16. Put himself through MIT. Started his first company at 22 and sold it for $50 million by 25. Now, with 32, he was worth billions. But the personal details were sparse. No mentions of relationships, no gossip about affairs or scandals. It was like he existed solely in the professional sphere. I found one article from a year ago that made my blood run cold. Blackwood backs out of engagement to childhood sweetheart. The photo showed him with a stunning blonde woman, Victoria Hartley. The article said, heiress to a pharmaceutical fortune. They'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months, when he'd suddenly called it off. No explanation given. Is that what this was about? Did he need a fake girlfriend to make his ex jealous? To save face at some society event where she'd be present? I closed the laptop and went to check on Mom. She was sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady and even. The new medication was helping, but it cost a fortune. Insurance covered some of it, but the copays alone were killing us. Plus, $100,000 would change everything. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw steel gray ones staring back at me. By morning, I'd made my decision. Marcus wasn't happy when I called in sick, but I didn't care. I put on my best dress, a simple black number I'd bought for job interviews that never led anywhere, and caught the bus to the Peninsula Hotel. The lobby was all marble and crystal, the kind of place where they probably charged $50 for a cup of coffee. I felt like everyone was staring at me, like they could tell I didn't belong. "I'm here to see Alexander Blackwood," I told the concierge, trying to sound like I did this every day. "Presidential suite." He looked me up and down, clearly dubious, but made a phone call. Whatever he heard must have satisfied him because he directed me to the private elevator. The ride up seemed to take forever. My palms were sweating, and I wiped them on my dress repeatedly. What was I doing? This was insane. Normal people didn't take jobs as fake girlfriends to billionaires. Normal people worked their shifts and paid their bills and slowly drowned in debt like they were supposed to. But I was so tired of being normal. The elevator opened directly into the suite, and I forgot how to breathe. The space was bigger than my entire apartment building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that made me dizzy. Everything was white and gold and perfect. Alexander stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city like he owned it, which, considering how many buildings probably had his name on them, wasn't far from the truth. "You came," he said without turning around. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might be too proud." He turned then, and I was struck again by how unfairly attractive he was. He'd traded the suit for dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Pride is a luxury people like us can't afford. People like us? I bristled. "You're a billionaire. I'm a waitress. We're not the same, aren't we?" He moved closer, and I caught a hint of his cologne, something expensive and subtle. "We both know what it's like to have nothing, Tom, to claw our way up from the bottom. The only difference is I've had more time to climb. I wanted to argue, but the research I'd done last night came back to me. Parents dead. Self-made fortune. Maybe we had more in common than I thought. So how does this work? I asked, needing to fill the silence. Do I sign a contract? Is there a dress code? What exactly would I be required to do? He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face. For a moment, he looked almost human. Straight to business. I like that. Yes, there's a contract. My lawyers have drawn it up. And as for requirements, it's simple. You'll accompany me to social events, business dinners, family gatherings. We'll need to maintain the illusion both in public and in private. You never know who's watching. You'll live here, with me, for the duration of the contract. Live with you. My voice came out as a squeak. Separate bedrooms, of course. But, yes, we need to be convincing. That means knowing each other's habits, preferences, stories. It means being comfortable with casual intimacy, holding hands, the occasional kiss for the cameras. My face burned. Kissing wasn't mentioned yesterday. Nothing beyond what would be expected of a normal couple in public. I'm not trying to buy that. He looked genuinely offended at the suggestion. This is a business arrangement, nothing more. Why me? I asked the question that had been burning since yesterday. You could have any woman you want. Why pick a random waitress? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, more real, because you're not part of my world. You don't know the players, don't have connections to exploit, or loyalties that could be compromised. You're... He paused, searching for the right word. Clean. You mean I'm nobody? I mean you're perfect. He handed me a folder. The contract was thick, full of legal language I didn't understand, but the important parts were clear. 6 months, $100,000, paid in installments, complete NDA. I could never speak about our arrangement to anyone, and a clause that made my stomach flip. If I broke the contract early, I'd have to pay back everything, plus a penalty. What happens after 6 months? I asked. We stage an amicable breakup. You keep the money and go back to your life. I go back to mine. And what is it exactly that you need a fake girlfriend for? What's happening in 6 months? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. My grandmother is dying. She's been after me to settle down for years, and I want her to pass believing I've found someone. Additionally, there are some business ventures that would benefit from me appearing more stable, settled. It was plausible, touching, even, but something in his eyes told me there was more to the story. And your ex? Victoria? His whole body went rigid. You've done your research. It seemed prudent. Victoria is no longer a factor in my life. The words were clipped, final. Do we have a deal, Miss Chen? I thought about Mom, about the bills piling up, about another year of 12-hour shifts and barely making ends meet. Then I picked up the pen and signed my name. Excellent. He took the contract and placed it in a safe hidden behind what I'd thought was a mirror. We'll start immediately. Movers will be at your apartment tomorrow to collect your things. Tomorrow? I need to give notice at work. Tell my mom, tell her you got a new job. Personal assistant to a CEO. It's close enough to the truth. He pulled out his phone. All business now. I'll have my stylist meet you this afternoon. We have an event tomorrow night, and you'll need appropriate attire. My head was spinning. This is moving very fast. I don't do anything slowly, Emma. You'll learn that about me. He handed me a credit card. Black, of course. For incidentals. Don't go crazy. But don't be cheap either. We need you to look the part. I stared at the card like it might bite me. I don't know how to be a billionaire's girlfriend. Then I'll teach you. He moved closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. But remember, this is just a performance. Don't mistake it for anything real. Trust me, I said, taking a step back. That won't be a problem. But as I left the hotel with a black credit card in my purse and a new life starting tomorrow, I wondered if I was lying to him or to myself. The stylist turned out to be a terrifying woman named Giselle, who looked at me like I was a project in desperate need of renovation. She dragged me through Saks and Nordstrom and boutiques I'd never even heard of, accumulating bags and boxes with ruthless efficiency. Mr. Blackwood's girlfriends have a certain look, she said, holding up a dress that cost more than my mother's monthly medication. Classic, elegant, understated wealth. Have there been a lot of them? Girlfriends, I mean? She gave me a sharp look. Not since Victoria, and we don't talk about her. By the time she was done with me, I had a wardrobe worth more than I'd made in the last 5 years. Dresses for galas, suits for business dinners, casual wear that somehow managed to look effortlessly expensive. She'd even insisted on new underwear, muttering something about visible panty lines being absolutely criminal. I took a taxi back to my apartment, unable to face the bus with all the bags. The driver helped me carry everything up, and I gave him a tip that would have made me cry yesterday. Mom was in the kitchen when I struggled through the door. Emma? What is all this? She stared at the designer bags with confusion and no small amount of concern. Please tell me you didn't. I got a new job, I said quickly. Personal assistant to a CEO. It pays really well. Mom, really, really well. But I have to live on site, so I'll be moving out tomorrow. Her face went through a series of emotions. Surprise, worry, pride, sadness. This is very sudden, sweetheart. You sure it's legitimate? It's legitimate. I pulled out the black credit card, then thought better of it. That would raise too many questions. The company is Blackwood Industries. You can look them up. It's a real job, I promise. She pulled me into a hug, and I breathed in the familiar scent of her lavender shampoo. I just want you to be safe and happy. I will be, I lied. And Mom, I'll be able to help more with your medical bills. A lot more. She pulled back, tears in her eyes. Oh, honey, you don't need to. Yes, I do. And now I can. We spent the evening packing my things, which didn't take long. My entire life fit into 3 boxes and 2 suitcases. 24 years. And that's all I had to show for it. I barely slept again. But this time it was from anxiety rather than indecision. What had I gotten myself into? What kind of world was I about to enter? The movers came at exactly 9 a.m., efficient and silent. They loaded my pathetic boxes alongside the designer bags from yesterday. Mom hugged me goodbye, making me promise to call every day. "I love you," she whispered. "Be careful." The ride to the peninsula felt like crossing into another dimension. The movers deposited everything in what was to be my room, a space bigger than our entire apartment, with its own bathroom and walk-in closet. Alexander wasn't there, but he'd left a note on the bed. His handwriting was precise, controlled, just like everything else about him. "Make yourself at home. Gala tonight at 8. Wear the blue dress. Car will pick us up at 7:30 A." I spent the day unpacking and trying not to have a panic attack. The closet swallowed my old clothes, making them look even shabbier next to the new designer pieces. I took a bath in the tub that could fit 3 people, using bath salts that smelled like heaven. By 7, I was dressed and ready. The blue dress was a masterpiece of engineering, somehow in making me look like I had curves in all the right places. The shoes were works of art that I could barely walk in. I'd pulled my hair into an elegant chignon, courtesy of a YouTube tutorial and half a can of hairspray. When Alexander walked into the living room at 7:25, he stopped mid-stride. His eyes traveled from my feet to my face, something unreadable flickering across his features. "You look..." He cleared his throat. "Appropriate. Appropriate." Well, that was romantic. He'd changed into a tuxedo that fit him like it had been sewn directly onto his body. The bow tie was perfectly straight, the shoes polished to a mirror shine. He looked like James Bond's richer, better-looking brother. "Ready for your debut?" he asked, offering me his arm. As ready as I'll ever be. The car was a Bentley that smelled like leather and money. We sat in silence for the first few minutes, the city lights blurring past the windows. "We should go over our story," he said suddenly. "How we met, how long we've been together, that sort of thing." "Right. Of course. We met 3 months ago at a charity auction. You were there with a friend who works for one of the sponsors. I was immediately taken with your honesty. You told me my speech was boring." I laughed despite my nerves. "Did I really? That's what you'll tell people?" "Yes. We've been dating quietly since then." "You still work because you insist on maintaining your independence, which I find both frustrating and admirable." "Where do I work in this fiction?" "Art gallery, downtown, and it explains why you'd be at the charity auction and gives you something interesting to talk about." "But I don't know anything about art." "You'll learn." He handed me a tablet. "I've prepared some materials for you to study. The basics should be enough for tonight." I scrolled through the documents, brief histories of major art movements, key players in the contemporary art scene, current exhibitions at major galleries. It was like cramming for a test I was destined to fail. "What about your story?" I asked. "What do I need to know about you?" "The basics are public knowledge. MIT graduate. Started young. Built Blackwood Industries from nothing. Parents died in a car accident when I was 16. No siblings. Grandmother helped raise me." That's your resume, not your story. "What do you do for fun? What's your favorite food? How do you take your coffee?" He looked at me like I'd asked him to solve world hunger. "I work. That's what I do for fun." "That's sad. That's success." His tone didn't invite argument. "As for the rest, I take my coffee black. No sugar. I don't have a favorite food because I eat for fuel, not pleasure. I run 5 miles every morning at 5 a.m., shower by 5:45, and I'm in the office by 6:30. Do you ever just relax? This is relaxing. Sitting in a car being grilled by your fake girlfriend is relaxing. Compared to hostile takeover negotiations? Yes, I wanted to laugh, but I wasn't entirely sure he was joking. The gala was at the Met, because of course it was. The steps were crowded with photographers, their flashes creating a strobe effect that made me dizzy. Alexander's hand found the small of my back, warm through the thin fabric of my dress. "Smile," he murmured. "Look at me like you're in love." I turned to him, and for a moment, forgot I was acting. Under the lights, with his hand on my back and his eyes locked on mine, he was breathtaking. I smiled, and his breath caught. "Perfect," he whispered, "just like that." We made our way up the steps, his hand never leaving my back. People called his name, cameras flashed, but he kept us moving forward with practiced ease. Inside, the museum had been transformed into a wonderland of flowers and lights. Women in gowns that cost more than houses air-kissed each other, while men in tuxedos discussed stock prices over champagne. "Alexander!" A woman's voice cut through the noise. "I heard you were bringing someone tonight." The woman approaching us was elegant in the way only old money could achieve. 70-something, Ponte's silver hair swept into a chignon. Diamonds at her throat that probably had names. "Grandmother," Alexander said, and I heard real warmth in his voice for the first time. "I'd like you to meet Emma Chen." "Emma, this is my grandmother, Eleanor Blackwood." Eleanor took my hands in hers, studying me with eyes that were unsettlingly similar to her grandson's. "My dear, you're lovely, though not quite what I expected." "What did you expect?" I asked, before I could stop myself. She laughed, a rich sound that drew glances. "Someone more like Victoria, I suppose. But then, that didn't work out very well, did it?" Alexander's hand tightened on my back. "Grandmother." "Oh, don't grandmother me. I'm old, not dead. I can see what's in front of me." She patted my cheek. "You'll do very well, my dear. Very well indeed." She swept away before I could ask what she meant, leaving me more confused than ever. "That went well," Alexander said, but his jaw was tight. "Does she know about our arrangement?" "My grandmother knows everything. Whether she chooses to acknowledge it is another matter." He snagged 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter. "Here, you look like you need it." I definitely did. The champagne was better than anything I'd ever tasted, bubbles dancing on my tongue like tiny celebrations. "Alexander," a man's voice this time, oily and false. "Heard you were back on the market, though apparently not for long." The man was handsome in a plastic way, all veneered teeth and salon tan. His date was young enough to be his daughter, clinging to his arm like a decorative accessory. "Richard," Alexander acknowledged coolly. "I wasn't aware my relationship status was of interest to you." "Everything you do is of interest, old friend, especially when it involves such a prizing choice." His eyes raked over me dismissively. though I suppose we all go slumming sometimes. My face burned, but before I could respond, Alexander stepped forward. Careful, Richard. Your wife might be interested to know about your Thursday afternoon appointments at the Ritz. Room 412, isn't it? Richard's face went white, then red. He muttered something about seeing other people and dragged his date away. That was necessary, Alexander cut me off. Richard Hartley is a parasite. Don't let him get to you. Hartley. The name clicked. Is he related to Victoria's cousin? Yes. As if summoned by her name, the crowd parted. And there she was. Victoria Hartley was even more stunning in person than in photos. Tall, blonde, perfect in that way that suggested personal trainers and perfect genetics, and never having to worry about money. She glided toward us in a red dress that should have been illegal, a man I didn't recognize on her arm. He was handsome in a catalog model way, all white teeth and no substance. Alex, she purred, ignoring me completely. You look well. Victoria. His voice could have frozen hell. I wasn't aware you were back in the city. Just returned from Monaco. You remember Charles, don't you? She indicated her date, who had the good sense to look uncomfortable. Though I hear you've been busy yourself. Going to introduce me to your friend? Emma Chen, I said, extending my hand before Alexander could speak. His girlfriend. Her handshake was limp, dismissive. How interesting. Tell me, Emma, what is it you do? I work at an art gallery, I lied smoothly, remembering my cover story. Downtown. Which one? Shit. Alexander hadn't specified. Meridian, I said, pulling a name from the tablet reading. We're actually preparing for a new exhibition in contemporary urban photography. Really? Her smile was sharp. How fascinating. And I'm quite involved in the art scene myself. Perhaps I should stop by. You should, I said, matching her smile. We're always happy to educate newcomers. Alexander's hand found mine, squeezing gently. A warning or support, I wasn't sure. Victoria's perfect face tightened. Well, how delightful. Alex, darling, we really must catch up properly soon. So much to discuss. I don't think that's necessary. Oh, but it is. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that I could barely hear. Especially considering our... She swept away before he could respond, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume and unspoken threats in her wake. What situation? I asked. Nothing that concerns you. His voice was flat, final. Come. There are people I need you to meet. The rest of the evening was a blur of faces and names I'd never remember. Alexander played the part of devoted boyfriend perfectly. A hand on my back. Whispered comments that made me laugh. Eyes that never strayed to the other beautiful women in the room. But I could feel the tension in him. See the way his jaw tightened whenever Victoria appeared in his peripheral vision. Whatever their situation was, it was clearly far from resolved. By the time we left, my feet were screaming and my face hurt from smiling. The car was a blessed relief, dark and quiet. You did well tonight, Alexander said as we pulled away from the museum. Better than I expected. Thanks, I think. The thing with Richard, I apologize for that. He's always been an ass. Is that why you keep dirt on him? The hotel thing? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I keep dirt on everyone, and it's a survival mechanism in my world. Do you have dirt on me? Beyond your credit score, outstanding debts, and complete employment history? No, I should have been offended by the invasion of privacy, but I was too tired to care. Find anything interesting? You're clean, honest, hard-working. You've never missed a payment until your mother got sick. And even then, you prioritized her medical bills over your own credit cards. He turned to look at me. Most people would have declared bankruptcy by now. Most people don't have sick mothers depending on them. No, most people would have let the state handle it. Put her in a substandard facility and moved on with their lives. She's my mother. I know. His voice was soft. My grandmother raised me after my parents died. I'd do anything for her. It was the most personal thing he'd shared, and I didn't know what to do with it. Is that really why you're doing this? The fake girlfriend thing? For her? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Partly. She's been diagnosed with terminal cancer. It's 6 months to a year, they say. She wants to see me settled before she goes. And the other part is complicated. We rode the rest of the way in silence, back at the penthouse. I kicked off the torture devices masquerading as shoes and sank into the couch. Thank you, Alexander said suddenly. For tonight, you handled yourself well. Even with Victoria? His face darkened. Especially with Victoria, though I'd prefer if you didn't engage with her in the future. Kind of hard to avoid if she's going to be at these events. She won't be. Tonight was an anomaly. Something in his tone made me think he'd make sure of it. Can I ask you something? I said, as he loosened his bow tie. What happened between you two? The real story, not the press release version. Why does it matter? Because if I'm going to pretend to be your girlfriend, I should probably know what landmines I'm walking into. He poured himself a scotch from the bar, offering me one with a raised eyebrow. I nodded, even though I'd never drunk scotch in my life. Victoria and I were together for 3 years, he said, handing me the glass. Engaged for 6 months. Paper. We were perfect. Same social circles, complementary business interests, aesthetic compatibility. Aesthetic compatibility? Is that what the kids are calling it these days? He almost smiled. My grandmother's term. She thought Victoria was perfect for me. Everyone did. But perfection is often an illusion. Victoria was very good at being what she thought I wanted. It took me 3 years to realize I didn't know her at all. The real her. So you broke it off? I discovered she was more interested in the Blackwood name and fortune than she was in me. There were factors. Things I'd rather not discuss. The way he said it made me think those other factors were significant. But I'd pushed enough for one night. Well, for what it's worth, I promise I'm only interested in your money, I said, trying to lighten the mood. Your name and you personally hold no appeal whatsoever. This time he did smile, a real one that transformed his face. I'm oddly comforted by that. I finished my scotch, which burned all the way down but left a pleasant warmth in its wake. I should get to bed. Do we have plans tomorrow? Brunch with my board of directors and their wives. Casual, but they'll be evaluating you. Great. No pressure, You'll be fine. Just be yourself. He paused. Well, yourself with a gallery job and an art history degree from NYU. Right. My fictional self. I stood to go, but he caught my hand. Emma, tonight, when the photographers were taking pictures, the way you looked at me, my heart stuttered. I was acting like you told me to. Of course, he released my hand. Good night. I practically ran to my room, closing the door and leaning against it. What was that? For a moment, and it had felt like... No. This was a business arrangement. A performance. I couldn't afford to forget that. I changed out of the designer dress and into my old pajamas, needing something familiar. As I lay in the king-sized bed in my palatial room, I thought about Victoria's whispered words. What situation? What wasn't Alexander telling me? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Enjoy playing dress-up while it lasts. You don't belong in his world, and we both know it. Vav. So Victoria had gotten my number. Wonderful. I deleted the message and tried to push down the unease curling in my stomach. This was just a job. 6 months, and I'd be gone. But as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the memory of Alexander's hand in mine, or the way his eyes had softened when he talked about his grandmother. This was definitely going to be more complicated than I'd thought. The next morning came too early. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving around in the kitchen, still half asleep. I padded out to find Alexander already dressed in casual clothes that probably cost more than formal wear, reading something on his tablet. "Good morning," he said without looking up. "Coffee's fresh. Maria made breakfast if you're hungry." Maria turned out to be the housekeeper, a warm Mexican woman who immediately started fussing over me, insisting I was too thin and needed to eat more. "Mr. Alexander, he never eats enough," she confided, piling my plate with eggs and bacon and fresh fruit, always working, never enjoying. Maybe you change that. Yes? Alexander looked up from his tablet, amused. Maria has been trying to fatten me up for 5 years. "Someone needs to take care of you," Maria shot back. "You can't live on coffee and ambition." It was strange, seeing him like this, more relaxed, almost human. He caught me staring and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing. You just seem different here, as opposed to last night, at the gala. You were like a robot in an expensive suit." Maria laughed, quickly covering it with a cough when Alexander shot her a look. "That's my work persona," he said. "It's necessary." "So which one is the real you?" He considered this. "Both. Neither. Does anyone really know who they are?" "That's very philosophical for..." I checked the clock. 8 in the morning. "I've been up since 5. "Of course you have." Maria set a plate in front of him, ignoring his protests. Eat, both of you. You need energy for dealing with those vultures today. Vultures? I asked. The board, Alexander explained. Maria has opinions about them. Opinions? Ha! Maria waved her spatula. Sharks in suits, all of them, waiting for you to show weakness so they can tear you apart. They're not that bad, Alexander said, but he didn't sound convinced. Mr. Davidson, he looks at you like you're a steak, and he's starving. And Mrs. Patterson, always asking when you settle down, give her grandchildren to play with her grandchildren. Maria shook her head. You watch this one, Miss Emma. They smell blood in the water. Great. Bravo, just what I needed. More people to fool. After breakfast, I retreated to my room to get ready. The closet full of designer clothes still felt surreal. I chose a sundress that looked casual, but probably cost more than my old monthly salary. Giselle had been right about the understated wealth thing. Everything looked simple until you noticed the perfect cut, the expensive fabric, the little details that screamed money. I was struggling with a necklace when there was a knock on my door. Come in. Alexander entered, then stopped. You're wearing your hair down. Is that wrong? I can put it up. No. Nice. Here, let me. He moved behind me, taking the necklace. His fingers brushed my neck as he fastened the clasp, and I shivered. Cold? Yeah, I lied. He stepped back, studying me. You look perfect. Very girlfriendy. Girlfriendy? Is that a word? It is now. He checked his watch. Ready? The car will be here in 10 minutes. As ready as I'll ever be to have brunch with sharks. Just remember your cover story. And if anyone asks about your family, my father's a teacher, my mother's a nurse, both still in California where I grew up. I moved here for college and stayed for the opportunities. I'd memorized the fictional biography he'd provided. Any other last-minute advice? Yes, whatever happens, don't let them see you sweat. The restaurant was one of those places that didn't need a sign because everyone who mattered already knew where it was. We were led to a private room where 6 people were already waiting. Alexander! A woman in her 50s with perfectly styled red hair stood up. And you must be Emma. We've heard so much about you. That was concerning, considering I'd been his fake girlfriend for exactly 2 days. Alexander made introductions. The red-haired woman was Patricia Patterson, apparently the one obsessed with grandchildren. Her husband, Robert, was a silent man who looked like he'd rather be golfing. Then there was James Davidson, the hungry shark, according to Maria, and his wife Cynthia, who had the deadest eyes I'd ever seen on a living person. The final couple was younger, maybe early 40s. Marcus Chen, no relation, thankfully, and his wife Lily. So, Emma, Patricia said as we sat down. Alexander tells us you work in an art gallery. How fascinating. I'm quite the collector myself. Here we go. Yes. Meridian Gallery. We specialize in contemporary pieces, particularly emerging artists. Oh, I don't think I'm familiar with that one. Where is it exactly? Shit. Alexander smoothly interjected. It's a newer gallery, Patricia. Very exclusive. They're quite selective about their clientele. How modern, James Davidson said, and something in his tone made it clear that wasn't a compliment. And how did you two meet? Alexander's been so secretive about you. I opened my mouth to recite the charity auction story, but Alexander beat me to it. Actually, it's quite a funny story. Emma told me my keynote speech at the Children's Hospital fundraiser was the most boring thing she'd ever heard. The table went silent. Then Marcus Chen laughed. Someone finally said it. I've been thinking that for years. Marcus, his wife hissed. What? We all know Alexander's speeches are like watching paint dry. No offense, none taken, Alexander said dryly. Emma was kind enough to suggest improvements. We spent the rest of the evening discussing better ways to engage donors. And that led to romance? Cynthia's dead eyes focused on me. How? Efficient. I prefer to think of it as serendipitous, I said. Though Alexander did take 3 weeks to call me after getting my number. I was traveling, he said. To Tokyo. I know. You mentioned it. Several times. I smiled at him sweetly. I think he was trying to impress me. Patricia laughed. Oh, and I like her. She doesn't let you get away with anything. Does she want to? No, Alexander said, looking at me with something I couldn't quite read. She doesn't. The food arrived. Tiny portions of things I couldn't identify, arranged like art on oversized plates. I followed Alexander's lead on which fork to use, hoping no one noticed my hesitation. Tell me, Emma, James said, cutting into what might have been fish. What does your family think of your relationship with Alexander? They're supportive, I said carefully, though my mother did warn me about dating workaholics. Wise woman. And they're in California, you said? Yes, San Diego area. I took a sip of water. We're not as close as I'd like. Distance makes things difficult. I imagine Alexander keeps you busy enough, Cynthia said. All those galas and events, quite different from the art world. I'd imagine. There was something in her tone that set off warning bells. Different. Yes, but I'm adaptable. I'm sure you are, she smiled. And it was like watching a snake unhinge its jaw. Tell me, which exhibition at the Met did you enjoy most this year? I felt Alexander tense beside me. This was a test. Actually, I found the Sleeping Beauties, reawakening fashion exhibition fascinating. The way they used technology to bring historical garments to life was innovative. It was a lucky guess. I'd seen something about it on the tablet Alexander had given me. Cynthia's smile faltered slightly. Though I have to admit, I continued, I prefer smaller galleries. There's something more intimate about discovering an unknown artist before the world catches on. How refreshingly unpretentious, Patricia said. Alexander, you should bring her to the house. I'd love to show her my collection. That's kind of you, Alexander said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. The interrogation continued through 3 more courses. Questions about my education, NYU, art history, graduated with honors according to my fictional biography. My career goals, supporting emerging artists. Maybe opening my own gallery someday. My relationship history, carefully vague, nothing serious before Alexander. I could feel them circling, looking for weak spots, but somehow, I managed to keep up. The tablet studying had helped, but mostly I relied on confidence and the ability to deflect, skills I'd learned waiting tables for difficult customers. Well, Robert Patterson said, speaking for almost the first time. "She's not what I expected." "Robert," his wife warned. "No, it's fine," I said. "I'm curious. What did you expect?" He studied me over his glasses. "Someone more like Victoria." The table went quiet. Alexander's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard enough to hurt. "I'll take that as a compliment," I said evenly. "Being unexpected." "As you should," Robert said, and I thought I caught approval in his voice. This company could use more unexpected things. "Speaking of the company," James cut in smoothly, "we should discuss the Singapore expansion." The conversation shifted to business, and I let it wash over me. Alexander's hand was still holding mine, his thumb absently stroking my knuckles. I didn't think he was aware he was doing it. "Boring you, darling," he murmured when he caught me zoning out. The endearment, even though I knew it was for show, made my stomach flip. Fascinated, actually. I had no idea hostile Taisul takeovers could sound so civilized. Marcus Chen nearly choked on his wine. "I really do like her," he told Alexander. "Where have you been hiding her?" "I haven't been hiding her. I've been keeping her safe from all of you." "Smart man," Lily Chen said. "We are rather a lot to take in." "Emma seems to be handling us just fine," Patricia observed. "Though I do think she's been remarkably patient with the interrogation." "Is that what this was?" I asked innocently. "I thought it was brunch." Even James Davidson cracked a smile at that. When we finally escaped 2 hours later, I felt like I'd run a marathon. In the car, I slumped against the seat. That was exhausting. "You did well," Alexander said. "Very well. I think you even impressed Davidson, which is nearly impossible." "Did I pass the test?" "With flying colors." He was quiet for a moment. "The thing with Robert, bringing up Victoria, I apologize for that." "It's fine. I'm going to hear about her a lot, aren't I?" "Probably." He looked out the window. "She was what everyone expected, what made sense. Our families had been pushing for the match since we were teenagers. So, what happened? Really?" He turned to look at me, and I was struck again by how gray his eyes were, like storm clouds. "I caught her in my bed with my best friend." "Oh!" "Well, that explained a lot. I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was clarifying." I realized I'd been in love with the idea of her, not the reality. The perfect girlfriend, the perfect wife, the perfect merger of families and fortunes. His laugh was bitter. She played the part so well. I never bothered to look beneath the surface. "Is that why you wanted someone like me? Someone who can't play that part? Someone who doesn't know how to play that part?" He corrected. "There's a difference." We rode in silence for a while. Then I remembered something. "Hey, what was Robert talking about? The company needing unexpected things?" Alexander sighed. "There's been pressure to take the company in a more conservative direction. Some board members think I take too many risks." "Do you?" "Probably. But that's how we've grown so fast. Safe choices lead to stagnation. And they want you to make safer choices? They want me to settle down, get married, have heirs, or..." Prove I'm not going to do something crazy, like leave everything to charity. He glanced at me. Hence the value of a girlfriend. Ah, so I'm not just fooling your grandmother. No, though she's the only one whose opinion I actually care about. Back at the penthouse, I changed into jeans and a t-shirt, needing to feel like myself again. I found Alexander in his study, already deep in work, despite it being Sunday afternoon. "Don't you ever take a break?" I asked. "This is a break. I'm only reviewing quarterly reports, not negotiating contracts." "That's sad." He looked up. "What would you suggest I do instead?" "I don't know. Watch a movie? Read a book that's not about business? Take a walk in the park? When would I have time for any of that?" "You make time. That's what normal people do. I thought we'd established I'm not normal." I perched on the edge of his desk, ignoring his frown. "When's the last time you did something is for fun?" He had to think about it. "I went skiing in Aspen last year. Let me guess, with clients?" His silence was answer enough. "That's it. We're watching a movie." "Emma, I really need to. What you need is to act like a human being for 2 hours. Come on. Consider it girlfriend duties. Would a real girlfriend let you work all Sunday?" He sighed but followed me to the living room. The TV was ridiculous. It took up most of one wall. But it took me 5 minutes to figure out how to turn it on. "This is embarrassing," I muttered, pressing random buttons. "Here." He took the remote, and 30 seconds later we had Netflix up. Show off. "What do you want to watch?" "I have no preference." "When's the last time you watched a movie?" Another telling silence. "Okay, we're starting with basics. Have you seen any Marvel movies? Are those the ones with the superheroes?" I stared at him. "How are you a billionaire tech guy who hasn't seen Marvel movies?" "I've been busy building an empire." "Right. Iron Man it is. You'll relate to Tony Stark, genius billionaire with emotional issues." "I don't have emotional issues." "Sure you don't." I curled up on one end of the massive couch, expecting him to sit at the other end. Instead, he sat right next to me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "Is this okay?" he asked. "I thought we should practice being comfortable with proximity. For the cameras that are definitely in your living room? For muscle memory. The more natural we are in private, the more convincing we'll be in public." It was logical, clinical, even. So why was my heart racing? The movie started, and I tried to focus on Tony Stark's origin story instead of how warm Alexander was beside me. About halfway through, his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. "You can answer it," I said. "No, you were right. It's Sunday." But the phone kept buzzing. Finally, he grabbed it, clearly intending to turn it off. Then his face changed. "What is it?" He showed me the screen. 23 missed calls from his CFO. "That can't be good," I said. He was already calling back. "What's the situation?" I could hear shouting on the other end, though I couldn't make out words. Alexander's face got progressively darker as he listened. "How much?" He closed his eyes. "And the press knows?" "Of course they do. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and was already moving toward his room. "I have to go. Someone leaked information about the Singapore deal to our competitors." They're trying to undercut us. Do you need me to come? He paused. No, this could get ugly. Stay here. Order dinner if I'm late. I'll probably be at the office most of the night. Alexander, but he was already gone, the door closing with a decisive click. I finished watching Iron Man alone, but couldn't focus. I kept thinking about the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw had clenched when he heard the news. Around 8, I ordered Chinese food, enough for 2, just in case. Maria had left for the day, and the penthouse felt too big and empty without anyone else in it. I was picking at Lo Mein when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Emma? A woman's voice, cultured and cold. Who's asking? Someone who's trying to help you. You seem like a nice girl, so I'm going to give you some advice. End things with Alexander now, before you get hurt. Victoria? A laugh. God, no. Victoria's the least of your problems. Ask Alexander about Singapore. Ask him why he really needs a girlfriend now. And when he lies to you, and he will lie, remember that I tried to warn you. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. Appetite completely gone. Who was that? What did Singapore have to do with anything beyond the business deal? It was after midnight when Alexander finally came home. He looked exhausted, tie askew, hair mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. You're still up, he said, sounding surprised. Couldn't sleep. How bad is it? Manageable. We'll have to move faster than planned, but we can salvage it. He noticed the Chinese containers. You ordered food. I didn't know if you'd eaten. Something softened in his face. I haven't. Thank you. We ate in companionable silence. Him attacking the Kung Pao chicken like he hadn't seen food in days. Can I ask you something? I said eventually. Of course, Ma. Is there more to this Singapore thing than just a business deal? He stilled, chopsticks halfway to his mouth. Why do you ask? Just curious. You seemed really upset earlier. It's a major expansion. Of course I was upset about someone trying to sabotage it. But he wasn't looking at me. The anonymous caller had been right. He was lying. But why? Emma. He set down his food, turning to face me. There are aspects of my business that are complicated, things I can't discuss, even with you, especially with you. It's for your own protection. Protection from what? From the parts of my world that aren't safe. He touched my face gently. This arrangement, our arrangement, it's meant to be simple. Don't complicate it by asking questions I can't answer. Can't or won't. Both. I wanted to push, but something in his eyes stopped me. He looked vulnerable. Alexander Blackwood, Billionaire CEO, looked vulnerable and tired and human. Okay, I said softly. No more questions. Tonight. Thank you. His hand was still on my face. You're not what I expected, Emma Chen. You're not what I expected either. We stayed like that for a moment, his thumb tracing my cheekbone, my heart doing gymnastics in my chest. Then his phone buzzed again, breaking the spell. I should get some sleep, he said, pulling away. Long day tomorrow. Yeah, me too. But I lay awake for hours, thinking about anonymous warnings and Singapore deals and the way Alexander's eyes had looked when he touched my face. This was supposed to be simple. Fake dating for 6 months, collect my money, go back to my life. But nothing about Alexander Blackwood was simple. And I was starting to think I was in way over my head. The next few weeks fell into a routine. Morning coffee with Alexander before he left for the office. Days spent studying art history and memorizing details about my fictional life. Fondlings at galas, charity events, business dinners, playing the devoted girlfriend, while trying not to think about how natural it was starting to feel. Alexander was a good teacher. He showed me which fork to use at formal dinners, how to make small talk with board members' wimas, how to deflect invasive questions with a smile. In return, I forced him to take breaks, to eat actual meals instead of surviving on coffee and ambition. "You're mothering me," he complained one evening when I physically dragged him away from his laptop. "Someone needs to. You'll work yourself into an early grave at this rate." "Concerned about your paycheck?" "Concerned about you, you impossible man." He looked surprised, then pleased. "No one's been concerned about me in a long time." "What about Victoria?" His face shuddered. "Victoria was concerned about the Blackwood name and fortune, not me. We were getting better at the physical aspect of our performance too, and holding hands felt natural now. The casual touches, a hand on my back, fingers brushing hair from my face, no longer made me jump. We'd even kissed a few times for photographers, chaste pecks that nevertheless left me breathless. "You're getting good at this," Alexander murmured one night after a particularly convincing display at a gallery opening. "I have an excellent teacher. I meant the art talk. You held your own with the museum curator." "Oh, that so." I flushed with pride. The studying helped, though I still think half of what passes for contemporary art is just rich people convincing each other that random objects have meaning. He laughed, a real laugh that I'd been hearing more often lately. "Don't let Patricia hear you say that. She just spent $2 million on a sculpture that looks like a trash can." "Is it supposed to be a trash can?" "The artist calls it a meditation on consumer waste." "So, trash can. $2 million trash can." We were still laughing when Victoria appeared, because of course she did. She had a talent for showing up at the worst possible moments, like a designer-clad bad penny. "Alex, Emma," she was wearing white tonight, looking like an evil angel. "How domestic you two look." "Victoria." Alexander's voice could have frozen hell. "I thought you were in Milan." "Plans change. I heard about Singapore." "Such a shame about the leak." Alexander went very still. "What do you know about that?" "Only what everyone knows, that someone in your inner circle betrayed you. Makes you wonder who you can trust, doesn't it?" Her eyes flicked to me. "Especially when you're letting strangers get so close." "Emma's not—" "Oh, I know exactly what Emma is." Victoria's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "The question is, do you?" She drifted away before either of us could respond, leaving poison in the air. "What did she mean by that?" I asked. "Nothing." Victoria likes to cause trouble, but there was a tightness around his eyes that hadn't been there before. The ride home was quiet. Alexander spent it on his phone, dealing with some crisis in Tokyo. "Oh, I stared out the window. Victoria's words echoing in my head. Back at the penthouse. I was heading to my room when Alexander caught my arm. Emma, what Victoria said, it's fine. I know she's just trying to cause problems. She's very good at it, Joel. He was standing close enough that I could see the faint scar on his left eyebrow. Don't let her get to you. I won't. But his hand was still on my arm, and he wasn't moving away. You've been... This whole arrangement has been better than I expected. Better how? Just... better. He lifted his other hand to my face, and my breath caught. Sometimes I forget it's not real. Alexander. Oh, sorry. Shouldn't... He started to pull away, but I caught his hand. Sometimes I forget, too. We stood there, balanced on the edge of something that would change everything. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. I should take this, he said roughly. Yeah, of course, no. I fled to my room, heart pounding. What was I doing? This was a business arrangement. I couldn't afford to forget that. Couldn't afford to develop real feelings for a man who was paying me to pretend. But as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at me, the way he'd said he forgot it wasn't real. The problem was, it was starting to feel real to me too. The next morning, things were awkward. Alexander was already gone when I woke up, leaving only a note about an early meeting. I spent the day at the penthouse, supposedly studying, but mostly overthinking every interaction we'd had. Around 3, my phone rang. Mom. Hi. Sweetheart. How's the new job? Guilt twisted in my stomach. I hated lying to her. It's good. Really good. How are you feeling? Better. The new medication is working wonderfully. I even made it to book club yesterday. Mom, that's amazing. I know. For the first time in months, I feel like myself again. She paused. Emma, I can't thank you enough. I know this new job is demanding, but what you're doing for me... You don't need to thank me. You're my mom. Still, I worry about you. Working for that billionaire, I looked him up. You know, Alexander Blackwood. He's very handsome. Mom? What? I'm sick, not dead. Is he nice to you? I thought about Alexander bringing me coffee in the morning, teaching me about wine pairings, laughing at my jokes about overpriced art. Yeah, he's nice. Good. You deserve nice. She coughed lightly. I should go. Doctor's appointment at 4. But Emma, I'm proud of you. I love you, Mom. Love you too, sweetheart. Hung up feeling like the worst daughter in the world. Here she was, proud of me, and I was lying to her about everything. My phone buzzed. Text from Alexander. Emergency. Can you meet me at the office? Car will be there in 10. My stomach dropped. What kind of emergency? The car ride to Blackwood Industries felt endless. The building was a monument to glass and steel, reaching toward the sky like it was trying to escape the earth. I'd never been to Alexander's office before. Our arrangement hadn't required it. Security whisked me up to the top floor, where Alexander's assistant, a severe woman named Janet, was waiting. He's in the conference room, she said, eyeing me with curiosity. Third door on the left. I could hear shouting before I even reached the door. Multiple voices, all angry. I knocked tentatively. Come in. The room was full of people in expensive suits, all looking ready to kill each other. Sanders stood at the head of the table, and the relief on his face when he saw me was palpable. Emma, thank you for coming. He held out his hand, and I went to him automatically. Gentlemen, ladies, my girlfriend, Emma Chen. This is highly irregular, a man with an unfortunate mustache said. This is a board meeting, not a social gathering. This is an emergency session about my fitness to lead this company, Alexander said coldly. I think having my partner here is entirely appropriate. My what now? I tried to keep my face neutral as Alexander guided me to a chair. Now then, he continued, where were we? Yes. Davidson was explaining why my personal life makes me unfit to run the company I built from nothing. James Davidson looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. No one's saying you're unfit. Alexander, we're simply concerned about the broken engagement with Victoria, now this sudden relationship with someone completely unknown. I'm right here, I said quietly, and Davidson barely glanced at me. The Singapore leak came from inside this company. Trust is at an all-time low. We need stability, not more drama. And you think my relationship with Emma is drama? Alexander's voice was dangerously quiet. I think, an older woman said carefully, that the timing is suspicious. You've been single for a year, shown no interest in dating, and suddenly you have a serious girlfriend right when questions about your stability arise. Are you suggesting Emma is some kind of… what? Hired actress? My heart stopped. Did they know? Of course not, Davidson said, but his eyes said otherwise. And we're simply saying that perhaps you should focus on the company instead of new relationships. My relationship with Emma has nothing to do with my ability to run this company. Doesn't it? The woman leaned forward. You've been distracted lately. Missing meetings, leaving early. That's not like you. Maybe, I said, surprising everyone including myself. That's a good thing. All eyes turned to me. Emma, Alexander warned. No, I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. I stood up, anger overcoming nervousness. You're upset because he's acting like a human being instead of a robot? Because he occasionally leaves the office before midnight? Maybe if more CEOs remembered they were people and not just profit machines, companies would be better places to work. The room was silent. Alexander was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Furthermore, I continued, on a roll now. His personal life is exactly that, personal, unless you have evidence that his relationship with me has negatively impacted the company's performance. This whole meeting is just gossip dressed up as concern. The stock price, Davidson started, is up 3% this quarter. I interrupted. I may just be an art gallery worker, but I can read a financial report. Revenue is exceeding projections. The Singapore expansion, despite the leak, is moving forward. So what exactly is the problem here? The problem, a new voice said from the doorway, is that some people can't stand to see Alexander happy. Alexander Blackwood entered the room like a queen returning to court. Despite her frail appearance, power radiated from her. Grandmother, Alexander said, you shouldn't be here. Nonsense! When I heard these vultures were circling, I had to come." She surveyed the room with those sharp gray eyes. "Though it seems Emma has things well in hand, Mrs. Blackwood," Davidson said carefully. "We're simply looking out for the company's best interests." "No, James. You're looking out for your own interests. You've wanted Alexander's position since the day he took it." She moved to stand beside us. "But let me make something very clear. Alexander has my full support, as does his relationship with Emma." "With all due respect," the older woman said, "your support doesn't address the concerns about what? That he's finally found someone who makes him smile? Who reminds him there's life outside this office?" Eleanor's voice could have cut glass. "I've watched my grandson work himself to the bone for this company. If he's finally found some happiness, anyone who tries to destroy that will answer to me." "No one's trying to destroy anything," Davidson protested. "Aren't you?" Eleanor pulled out a folder. "Then perhaps you can explain why you've been in contact with Victoria Hartley. Why she knew about the emergency board meeting before Alexander did." The room went very quiet. "I don't know what you're implying," Davidson said, but sweat was beading on his forehead. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You've been feeding information to Victoria, hoping she could drive a wedge between Alexander and Emma. What I want to know is why." "This is ridiculous. I don't have to sit here and—" "Sit down. James." Alexander's voice was lethal. "You're not going anywhere until we get to the bottom of this." What followed was the kind of corporate bloodletting I'd only seen in movies. Eleanor had evidence, emails, phone records, financial transactions. Davidson had been working with Victoria to destabilize Alexander's position, hoping to stage a takeover. "The Singapore leak," Alexander said, understanding dawning. "That was you." Davidson's face was purple. "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to. Your resignation will be on my desk by morning, or I'll have you arrested for corporate espionage." "You wouldn't dare. Try me." Davidson stormed out, followed quickly by 2 other board members who'd apparently been in on the scheme. The remaining board members looked shell-shocked. "Well," Eleanor said briskly, "I think that concludes today's business. Unless anyone else would like to confess to corporate espionage." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. The meeting disbanded quickly, everyone eager to distance themselves from the drama. When we were alone, Eleanor turned to me. "You did well, my dear. Very well indeed." "I just said what I was thinking." "Exactly. That's what makes you perfect for him." She patted my cheek. "Take care of my grandson. Emma, he needs someone like you more than he knows." She left, and suddenly it was just Alexander and me in the big conference room. He was standing by the windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for what you said, for being here. I meant it. They had no right to attack you like that." He turned to face me. "You defended me. No one's done that in a very long time." "Well, that's what girlfriends do, right? Even fake ones." Something flashed across his face. "Right. Fake ones." The drive back to the penthouse was quiet. Alexander held my hand the entire way, his thumb tracing absent patterns on my skin. It should have felt like part of the act. but there were no cameras here, no one to perform for. "I need to tell you something," he said as we entered the penthouse, "about Singapore. About why it matters so much." We settled on the couch, and he poured himself a scotch. His hands were shaking slightly. "My parents died when I was 16. Car accident, the reports said. But it wasn't an accident." My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "They were investigating a pharmaceutical company. My mother was a journalist. My father was a doctor. They'd discovered that this company was knowingly selling contaminated drugs to developing countries. People were dying, and the company was covering it up. Oh my God. They were on their way to meet with a federal prosecutor when their car went off the road. No skid marks, no mechanical failure, just gone." He took a long drink. "The company was Hartley Pharmaceuticals, Victoria's family's company." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "That's why you broke up with her." "I didn't know when we started dating. The connection, it was Eleanor who figured it out, years later. She hired private investigators, dug into the old case files." His laugh was bitter. "Imagine finding out the woman you're planning to marry comes from the family that killed your parents. Did Victoria know?" "She says she didn't, but her father did. He was running the company at the time." He set down his glass, running his hands through his hair. "The Singapore expansion, it's not just about business. There's a pharmaceutical component. We're partnering with a company that manufactures generic drugs for countries that can't afford brand names. It's what my parents would have wanted. Medical care for people who need it, not just people who can afford it. And Victoria's trying to stop it? Her family still has significant interests in the pharmaceutical industry. If we succeed, it could cost them billions." He looked at me. "That's why I needed someone outside of my world, someone they couldn't influence or threaten. And I didn't mean for you to get caught in the middle of this." I moved closer to him on the couch. "Hey, I'm exactly where I chose to be. Are you? Because Davidson was right about one thing. You could be in danger just being associated with me. I'm a big girl, Alexander. I can take care of myself." "Can you? Because Victoria is a vindictive bitch who's trying to protect her family's blood money." "I get it." Took his hand. "But I'm not afraid of her. You should be. The Hartleys have resources, connections. They've already killed to protect their interests. That was 20 years ago. Do you really think they've changed?" He pulled me closer, and I went willingly. "Emma, if anything happened to you because of me, nothing's going to happen." I touched his face, forcing him to look at me. "We're going to get through the next few months, launch your Singapore project, and show Victoria and her family that they can't control you anymore." "When did you become so brave?" "When I realized you needed someone to be brave for you." He kissed me then. Not the careful, camera-ready pecks we'd shared before. This was desperate and real and full of emotions neither of us was ready to name. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Emma," he said roughly, "we can't. The contract. Screw the contract. You don't mean that. Don't I?" I stood up, needing space to think. God, this is so messed up. I'm falling for you, and you're paying me to pretend to date you, and your evil ex's family maybe murdered your parents, and I don't even know what's real anymore. You're falling for me? His voice was very quiet. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Like you didn't know. Like you're not feeling it too. What I'm feeling doesn't matter. My pumptu soa. I hired you to do a chomp. Taking advantage of that would be, you're not taking advantage. I'm a grown woman making my own choices. I turned to face him. I turned to face Ashon. Unless you don't actually feel anything. Unless I'm just projecting and making a fool of myself. He was across the room in 3 strides, catching my face in his hands. You're not projecting. God, Emma, you have no idea what you do to me. How you've turned my entire world upside down in just a few weeks. Then why are we fighting this? Because in 4 months, our contract ends. You'll have your money. Your mother will be taken care of, and you can go back to your normal life. Free of all this. He gestured vaguely at the penthouse, the luxury, the danger. What if I don't want to go back to my normal life? You say that now, but when you've had time to think, when you're not caught up in the moment, stop. I pulled away. Stop deciding what I want. Stop protecting me from my own choices. I'm trying to do the right thing. The right thing? You want to know what the right thing is? I was angry now. The right thing is being honest about how we feel. The right thing is admitting that this stopped being fake weeks ago. Emma, no. You know what? Forget it. You're right. This is just a business arrangement. I'm just an employee. I'll try to remember that. I fled to my room before he could see me cry. Behind me, I heard something shatter. His Scotch glass against the wall. Maybe I threw myself on the bed. Burying my face in the designer pillows, how had I let this happen? How had I fallen for the one man I absolutely couldn't have? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You looked cozy at the board meeting today. Playing house with someone else's life? TikTok? Emma, time's running out. I deleted it and turned off my phone. Victoria could go to hell. Everything could go to hell. I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, someone was knocking on my door. The room was dark, and the clock said 2 a.m. Emma? Alexander's voice, rough and uncertain. Are you awake? I considered pretending to be asleep, but curiosity won. Yeah. Can I come in? It's your house. He opened the door, silhouetted by the hallway light. He'd changed into pajama pants and a t-shirt, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. I couldn't sleep, he said. Not with how we left things. I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest. What do you want, Alexander? I want to tell you the truth. He moved into the room, sitting on the edge of my bed. The truth is, I'm terrified. I've spent the last year building walls, convincing myself I'd never let anyone close again. Then you walked into my life and demolished every defense I had without even trying. Alexander, let me finish. Please. He took a deep breath. I told myself I hired you because I needed someone outside my world, someone safe. But the truth is, I hired you because from the moment you dropped that tray in the diner, I couldn't stop thinking about you. You hired me because I'm clumsy? He smiled. I hired you because you were real. Because when you looked at me, you didn't see a billionaire or a business opportunity. You saw an annoying customer interrupting your shift. You were pretty annoying. I was nervous. I'd been watching you for 20 minutes, trying to work up the courage to talk to you. You were watching me? Not in a creepy way. I was there for a meeting at the building next door. I saw you through the window, dealing with a difficult customer. The way you smiled even though they were being horrible. The way you helped that old man count out exact change without making him feel bad about it. He shook his head. I couldn't explain it. I just knew I had to know you. So you came up with this elaborate fake dating scheme? I came up with an excuse to keep you close, to get to know you without risking. This, he gestured between us, these feelings that complicate everything. Life is complicated, Alexander. That's what makes it worth living. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, complications get people killed. My parents died because they complicated the wrong people's lives. Victoria betrayed me because our relationship became complicated. Now I'm dragging you into danger because I was selfish enough to want you near me. I crawled across the bed to him, taking his face in my hands. Listen to me. Your parents died because they were heroes trying to expose corruption. Victoria betrayed you because she's a shallow, greedy person, incapable of real love. And you didn't drag me anywhere. I walked into this with my eyes open. Did you? Because I don't think either of us expected this. No, I admitted. I expected to hate you. The arrogant billionaire who thought he could buy anything, including a girlfriend. Instead, I found someone who works too hard because he's trying to honor his parents' memory. Someone who loves his grandmother fiercely. Someone who's been so hurt, he's afraid to let anyone close. Emma. I found you, Alexander, the real you, and I fell in love with him despite every logical reason not to. He made a sound like I'd punched him. You can't love me. It's been less than a month. Tell that to my heart. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of wonder. What am I going to do with you? Love me back, hopefully. I already do. God help me, I do. He pulled me into his lap, holding me like I might disappear. But Emma, loving me comes with a price. The Hartleys won't stop. Victoria won't stop. They'll try to hurt you to get to me. Then we'll face them together. Together. He tested the word like it was foreign. I haven't had together in a very long time. Well, get used to it. I'm not going anywhere. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the dark. Eventually, Alexander lay down beside me, fully clothed on top of the covers. Stay, I whispered. Just to sleep. I don't want to be alone. Neither do I. I curled into his side, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. For the first time since this whole charade began, everything felt right. Of course, that's when everything went wrong. I woke to Alexander's phone ringing insistently. He groaned. fumbling for it. What? His voice was rough with sleep. Then he shot upright. When? How bad? I'll be there in 20 minutes. What's wrong? I asked as he scrambled off the bed. There's been an accident. Eleanor, my grandmother, she collapsed at home. They're taking her to Mount Sinai. I'm coming with you. Emma, you don't have to. Together. Remember? Get dressed. I'll call the car. We made it to the hospital in 15 minutes. Alexander holding my hand so tightly it hurt. He was vibrating with tension. His usual control completely shattered. Eleanor was in the ICU, machines beeping around her. She looked tiny in the hospital bed, fragile in a way that made my chest ache. Mr. Blackwood? A doctor appeared. I'm Dr. Martinez. Your grandmother had a minor stroke. We've stabilized her, but the cancer has progressed faster than we anticipated. Her body is weak. Another event like this. He trailed off meaningfully. Alexander's face was stone. How long? It's hard to say. Weeks, maybe a month or two if we're lucky. Thank you, Alexander said mechanically. The doctor left, and Alexander sank into a chair beside Eleanor's bed. I'd never seen him look so lost. She's all I have left, he said quietly. When my parents died, she saved me, gave me a home, pushed me to succeed, believed in me when no one else did. I can't lose her too. I knelt beside his chair, taking his hands. You're not going to lose her yet. She's a fighter. Look how she handled the board today. That probably caused this. The stress of defending me. Stop. This isn't your fault. The cancer isn't your fault. Eleanor's eyes fluttered open. Of course it's not his fault, she said weakly. Though if he insists on blaming himself, I might have to haunt him. Grandmother. Alexander was at her side instantly. How do you feel? Like I've been hit by a truck, but I've felt worse. Her eyes found me. Emma, dear, thank you for bringing him. Of course, I need to speak to my grandson alone for a moment. Would you mind? Not at all. I'll get us some coffee. I left them alone, wandering the hospital corridors in search of caffeine. The coffee machine was broken, because of course it was. I was debating the vending machine options when someone spoke behind me. Emma Chen, we finally meet properly. I spun around. A man in his 60s stood there, distinguished in an expensive suit. He had Victoria's eyes, cold and calculating. Mr. Hartley, I presume. Smart girl. Daughter speaks highly of you. Well, no, that's not true. She actually hates you quite intensely. The feeling's mutual. He laughed. I like you. It's a shame you've chosen the wrong side. I wasn't aware there were sides. Oh, my dear, there are always sides, and you've aligned yourself with someone who's about to lose everything. Is that a threat? It's a certainty. Alexander's little pharmaceutical project threatens billions in revenue. Did you really think we'd allow that? I think you're going to try to stop it. I also think you'll fail. Such confidence. Tell me, does Alexander know about your mother's situation? My blood went cold. What about my mother? Stage 3 cancer, isn't it? Such expensive treatment. It would be a shame if her insurance suddenly decided not to cover it anymore. You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I? My family has interests in many industries, including insurance, a few phone calls, some paperwork complications. He shrugged. These things happen. You're threatening a sick woman to get to me? I'm offering you a choice. End things with Alexander, quietly and completely. In return, your mother gets the best treatment money can buy, Swiss clinics, experimental drugs, whatever she needs. And if I refuse, then you'll watch her die, knowing you could have saved her. I wanted to throw up. You're a monster. I'm a businessman protecting my interests. He handed me a card. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I make the call. He walked away, leaving me shaking. How did he even know about my mother? How deep did their reach go? I made it back to Eleanor's room on autopilot. Alexander looked up as I entered, immediately sensing something was wrong. What happened? You're white as a sheet. Just hospitals. They remind me of my mom. It wasn't entirely a lie. Come here. He pulled me into his arms, and I let myself be comforted, even though I didn't deserve it. How could I tell him about Hartley's threat? How could I not? Eleanor was sleeping again, her breathing steady but labored. We stayed with her until morning, Alexander refusing to leave her side. You should go home, he said around 7 a.m. Get some rest. What about you? I'll stay. I can work from here. Alexander, please, Emma, I need to be here, in case. Kissed him softly. Okay, but I'm coming back this afternoon, and you're going to eat something, even if I have to force feed you. Bossy, you love it. I do. Back at the penthouse. I showered and changed, trying to wash away the hospital smell and Hartley's threats. My phone had several missed calls from my mother. My hands shook as I called her back. Emma, I've been trying to reach you. Sorry, Mom. Is everything okay? That's what I wanted to ask you. A man came by the house yesterday, asking questions about you. Said he was doing a background check for your work. Hartley's people. They'd been to her house. What did you tell him? Nothing, of course. It seemed fishy. Emma, are you in some kind of trouble? No, Mom. It's just... The job requires high security clearance. They're very thorough. If you say so. She didn't sound convinced. How's Mr. Blackwood? It's complicated. Matters of the heart usually are. You being safe? Mom, I mean emotionally. Emma, her mind out of the gutter. Despite everything, I laughed, trying to be safe, so it's just hard when you're falling in love. How did you know? Mother's intuition. Plus, you get this tone in your voice when you talk about him. Same tone you had with David, but more, deeper. Mom, just be careful, sweetheart. Rich men live in different worlds than us. Make sure he's worth the price of admission. If only she knew what that price might be. After we hung up, I sat staring at Hartley's card. 48 hours to choose between the man I loved and my mother's life. How was that even a choice? My phone buzzed. Victoria. Did Daddy deliver his message? Tick-tock. Emma. Time to decide what matters more, your little fairy tale or your mother's life. Though really, we both know how this ends. Girls like you don't get happily ever after with men like Alexander. I threw my phone across the room, watching with satisfaction as it shattered against the wall. Then I sat on the floor and cried, for Eleanor dying in a hospital bed, for Alexander about to lose the only family he had left, for my mother whose life hung in the balance, for myself and the impossible choice I faced. The fairy tale was over. Now came the hard part, deciding how much I was willing to sacrifice for love. But as I sat there among the broken pieces of my phone, I realized something. The Hartleys thought they had me cornered. They thought I was just some nobody waitress who would fold under pressure. They were wrong. I'd grown up fighting poverty, fighting debt, fighting to keep my mother alive. I'd served coffee to jerks and smiled through 12-hour shifts and never once gave up. I wasn't about to start now. Standing up, I wiped my tears and went to Alexander's study. If the Hartleys wanted a war, I'd give them one. But first, I needed information. I needed to understand what I was really up against. Alexander's computer was password protected, but he'd given me the code last week when I needed to print something. I felt guilty snooping, but this was about more than just us now. I found the Singapore files first. The scope of the project was staggering. Not just generic drugs, but a whole network of clinics in underserved areas, free HIV medications, insulin that didn't cost a fortune, your childhood vaccines distributed at cost. No wonder the Hartleys were panicked. This would revolutionize pharmaceutical access in half the developing world. Then I found another folder, labeled simply H. Inside were documents going back 20 years, police reports about his parents' accident, private investigator findings, financial records showing payments from Hartley Pharmaceuticals to various offshore accounts around the time of the crash. But there was more. Recent documents showing Hartley Company involvement in price-fixing scandals, contaminated drug cover-ups, bribing foreign officials. Alexander had been building a case against them for years. "What are you doing?" I spun around. Alexander stood in the doorway, looking exhausted. "I thought you were staying at the hospital." "Eleanor insisted I come home and shower. I asked what you were doing." "Research." I stood up, facing him. "Why didn't you tell me you were building a legal case against the Hartleys?" His face hardened. "How much did you read?" "Enough." "Alexander, this is huge. You have enough here to what? Bring criminal charges? I've tried, Shu." They have judges in their pockets, politicians on their payroll. Every time I get close, witnesses disappear or recant. So you're using Singapore to hurt them financially instead. It's the only way I can get justice for my parents. Hit them where it matters. Their profit margins. And Victoria knows this. Victoria knows everything. She was probably spying on me our entire relationship. He moved closer, studying my face. What's really going on, Emma? Why are you looking into this? I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to tell him everything. But if I did, he'd try to protect me, probably by ending our relationship to keep me safe. And that wouldn't save my mother. Hartley had made it clear the threat stood either way. I'm trying to understand what we're up against, I said instead. If I'm going to be in danger, I want to know why. He pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry. I should have told you everything from the beginning. It's okay. I understand why you didn't. Do you? Because I'm not sure I do anymore. All these secrets, all these games. Tired of it. Emma, I just want to be with you without all this hanging over us. Soon, I promised. Once Singapore launches, once your grandmother... Yeah, his voice was heavy. Once, we stood there holding each other, both lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Alexander pulled back. I should shower and get back to the hospital. Will you come with me? Of course. While he showered, I used his computer to send myself copies of the most damning Hartley documents. If I was going to fight them, I needed ammunition. Then I made a decision that would either save us all or destroy everything. I called the number on Hartley's card. Miss Chen, he answered on the first ring. I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. I want to meet, face to face, tomorrow. Have you made your decision? I've decided I want to discuss terms, but not over the phone. Smart girl. The son. Regis, 1 o'clock. The King Cole Bar. Come alone. Fine. I hung up just as Alexander emerged from the bedroom, looking marginally more human. Ready? He asked. Ready, but as we headed back to the hospital, his hand warm in mine, I wondered if I'd ever be ready for what came next. Eleanor was awake when we arrived, looking better despite the circumstances. There you are, she said. Alexander was driving the nurses crazy. I was not. You were, darling. Accept it. She patted the bed. Emma, come sit with me. I perched carefully beside her while Alexander went to harass the doctors for updates. I don't have much time, Eleanor said quietly. So I'm going to be direct. You love my grandson. It wasn't a question. Yes. And he loves you. More than he loved Victoria, more than he's ever loved anyone. She took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. I need to know you'll take care of him when I'm gone. Eleanor, please. I've been the only constant in his life since he was 16. When I die, he'll have no one, except you. He'll always have me, I promised, even though I wasn't sure it was a promise I could keep. Good. She studied me with those sharp eyes. You're stronger than you think, Emma Chen. Whatever comes next, remember that. It felt like she knew, like she could see right through me to all my secrets and fears. Alexander returned with the doctor, who had marginally good news. Eleanor was stable enough to go home with round-the-clock care. They'd monitor her condition, make her comfortable. I want to die in my own bed, Eleanor said firmly, not surrounded by machines and strangers. So we took her home, to the Blackwood estate in the Hamptons that I'd never seen before. It was beautiful in an old money way, all weathered shingles and ocean views. This is where Alexander grew up, Eleanor told me as we settled her into her room. After his parents died. We spent summers here when he was young. It's beautiful. It's home. She looked at Alexander. It should be filled with children again. Your children. Grandmother, he warned. What? I'm dying. I'm allowed to guilt trip you about great-grandchildren. Despite everything. We laughed. We stayed at the estate that night. Alexander showed me his childhood room, still decorated with science fair trophies and MIT pennants. You were such a nerd, I teased. Were? Okay. He pulled me onto the narrow twin bed. This is where I used to dream about the future, building something important, making my parents proud. They would be proud. You're using your success to finish what they started. I hope so. He was quiet for a moment. Emma, if something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, the Singapore project, the evidence against the Hartleys, it's all in a safety deposit box. Janet has the key and instructions. Alexander, you're scaring me. I'm being practical. The Hartleys play for keeps. We both know that. I curled into him, trying not to think about my meeting tomorrow. Then we'll just have to play better. My fierce little waitress, he murmured into my hair. What did I do to deserve you? You interrupted my shift with a ridiculous job offer. Best decision I ever made. We made love that night, slow and gentle and desperate, like we both knew time was running out, but neither wanted to admit it. Afterward, I lay awake listening to him breathe, memorizing the feeling of his arms around me. Tomorrow I would meet with Hartley. Tomorrow, I would either find a way to save us all or lose everything trying. But tonight, I had this. Alexander's heartbeat under my ear, the ocean waves through the open window, the promise of love even if I couldn't keep it, and it would have to be enough. Morning came too soon. I slipped out of bed before Alexander woke, leaving a note about needing to handle something in the city. It wasn't entirely a lie. The drive back to Manhattan felt like driving to my execution. By the time I reached the St. Regis, my hands were shaking. Hartley was already there, sitting at a corner table like he owned the place, which he probably did, in some convoluted way. Emma, so glad you could make it. I sat down, ordering a vodka tonic when the waiter appeared. If I was going to do this, I needed liquid courage. Let's skip the pleasantries, I said. You want me to leave Alexander? What exactly does that look like? Direct. I appreciate that. He pulled out a folder. Inside, you'll find a script, so to speak. You'll tell Alexander you've been using him, that it was always about the money. You'll be cruel enough that he won't try to win you back. He'll never believe that. Then you'll have to be convincing. Perhaps mention how you've been in contact with your ex. David, wasn't it? How you've realized you never stopped loving him. You've done your research. I know everything about you, Miss Chen. Your debts, your mother's illness, your father who walked out when you were 12. His smile was reptilian. I even know about the shoplifting incident when you were 16. Desperate times, I'm sure. That was expunged. Nothing's ever really expunged if you know where to look. I took a long drink. And if I do this, my mother gets treatment? The best money can buy. I'll personally ensure she's admitted to the Kellerman Institute in Switzerland. They have an experimental program with an 80% success rate for her type of cancer. How do I know you'll keep your word? He pulled out another document. A contract, signed and notarized. Your cooperation for your mother's treatment. Simple. I read through it, looking for loopholes. It was airtight. If I broke Alexander's heart, my mother lived. I need time to think. You have until tonight. After that, I make the call to your mother's insurance company. He stood. Oh, and Emma? Don't think about telling Alexander about this meeting. I have people watching. Shows any sign of knowing about our arrangement, the deal's off. He left me sitting there with the contracts and my vodka. I ordered another, then another. By the time I left the bar, I had a plan. It was desperate and probably stupid, but it was all I had. I went to see my mother. She was having a good day, sitting up in bed reading when I arrived. Emma, what a lovely surprise. Shouldn't you be at work? I took the day off. I sat beside her, taking her hand. Mom, I need to tell you something. I told her everything. The fake relationship, the real feelings, the Hartley's threats. She listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, anger, and something that looked like pride. So you see, I finished, I don't know what to do. Yes, you do. When she squeezed my hand, you know exactly what to do. Mom, Emma, listen to me. I've lived a good life. I've raised a daughter I'm proud of. I've had love and loss and everything in between. But you? You're just starting. You have a chance at real happiness with someone who loves you. I can't let you die. We're all going to die, sweetheart. The question is how we live. She touched my face. Don't sacrifice your future for my past. Promise me. Mom, promise me. Emma, whatever happens, you choose love. You choose Alexander. I was crying now. I can't lose you. You won't. I'll fight this with everything I have, but not at the cost of your happiness. Tal. She smiled through her own tears. Besides, I want to meet my future son-in-law properly. The real him, not the boss version. You're impossible. I wonder where you get it from. I stayed with her until she fell asleep, then made my way back to the penthouse. Alexander was there, pacing like a caged animal. Where have you been? He grabbed me the moment I walked in. I've been calling for hours. My phone's broken. I went to see my mom. You could have told me, and with everything that's happening, when I couldn't reach you. He pulled back, studying my face. You've been crying. She has good days and bad days. Today was hard. It wasn't entirely a lie. He pulled me close, and I breathed him in, storing up the scent of him. I have something to tell you, he said. The Singapore deal closed an hour ago. We did it. The Hartleys can't stop it now. That's wonderful. And it was. Whatever happened next, at least his parents' dream would live on. We're having a celebration tomorrow night. The team. Some investors. I want you there with me. Of course. And Emma? I've been thinking. This is all over. After the 6 months, I don't want you to go. I want to make this real, permanently. My heart shattered. Alexander, I know it's fast. I know we started this all wrong, but I love you. I want to build a life with you. A real life, not this pretend arrangement. I love you too, I whispered, because I couldn't not say it. Then stay, not because of a contract or money, because you want to. Yes, the word escaped before I could stop it. Yes, I want to stay. He kissed me then, and I tasted my tears on his lips. Tomorrow, I would have to break his heart to save my mother. But tonight, I could pretend we had forever. We made love desperately, clinging to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. Every touch felt like goodbye. Every kiss was an apology for what I had to do. Afterward, as he slept, I slipped out of bed and retrieved Hartley's script. I memorized every cruel word, practiced the lies in the mirror until I could say them without flinching. Then I did something unforgivable. I went to Alexander's safe and photographed every document related to the Hartleys. If I was going to destroy the man I loved, I was damn well going to destroy them too. The next morning, I sent everything to 3 different journalists, 2 federal prosecutors, and an FBI friend of my mother's from college. Then I set up delayed emails to send in 48 hours with copies to WikiLeaks and every major news outlet. If the Hartleys wanted to play dirty, they were about to learn what a cornered waitress was capable of. The celebration party was at the Rainbow Room, because apparently Alexander didn't do anything small. I wore a red dress Giselle had picked out weeks ago. The one Alexander said made me look like a movie star. "You're breathtaking," he said when he saw me. "So are you." He was in a tux again, looking like every fantasy I'd ever had. The party was in full swing when we arrived. Champagne flowing, people congratulating Alexander on the Singapore triumph. I played my part perfectly, the supportive girlfriend, the art gallery worker who'd captured the billionaire's heart. "A toast," someone called out, "to Alexander Blackwood, who's proving that good business and good conscience can coexist." Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine too, even though champagne tasted like ashes. "And to Emma," Alexander added, pulling me close, "who reminded me that there's more to life than work, who made me believe in love again." The room awed. I wanted to die. "Actually," I heard myself say, "I have something to say." The room quieted. Alexander looked at me with such trust, such love. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there in front of all these people and destroy him with Hartley's words. I couldn't be another Victoria, another betrayal in a life that had seen too many. I just wanted to say, I continued, my voice shaking, that Alexander Blackwood is the best man I've ever known. Whatever happens, that will always be true. "Emma?" He was frowning now, sensing something wrong. That's when the doors burst open. Federal agents flooded the room, badges out, guns visible. The party erupted in chaos. "Nobody move!" the lead agent shouted. "We're looking for Richard Hartley and Victoria Hartley." My blood froze. They weren't supposed to act on the documents for 48 hours. "What is this?" Alexander demanded. "Mr. Blackwood. We received evidence this morning of criminal conspiracy, murder for hire, and corporate espionage. We have warrants for the Hartley's arrest. Murder for hire. They'd found more than even I had sent. Don't understand, Alexander said. What evidence? From who? The agent looked at me, Tone. Your girlfriend sent us quite a package, Mr. Blackwood, though I suspect you already knew that. Alexander turned to me, confusion and betrayal warring on his face. Emma? I can explain. You sent them evidence. When? How did you even? Understanding dawned. You went through my files. You went behind my back. I had to. Alexander. Please, Ms. Chen, another agent interrupted. We'll need you to come with us. There are questions about your involvement with the Hartleys. What? Alexander stepped between us. What involvement? Sir, we have recorded conversations between Ms. Chen and Richard Hartley. Discussions of payments, threats against her mother, conspiracy to... That's enough. A familiar voice cut through the chaos. Alexander Blackwood entered, leaning heavily on a cane but radiating authority. These agents are here at my request. Grandmother? Alexander looked lost. What are you doing here? You should be resting. I've been working with the FBI for months, Eleanor said calmly. Building a case against the Hartleys. Emma's evidence was the final piece we needed. You knew? I stared at her. This whole time? I suspected Richard would try to compromise you. You're Alexander's weakness, just as he's yours. She smiled sadly. So I had you watched. We recorded every threat, every meeting. You used her as bait? Alexander's voice was dangerous. You put Emma in danger? I protected her. Federal agents have been watching her since the first threat. Eleanor moved closer, touching his face. I'm dying, my darling boy. I couldn't leave this world knowing the people who killed your parents were still free. Where are the Hartleys? The lead agent asked. Richard's already in custody, another agent reported. Picked him up at his office. But Victoria's in the wind. As if on cue, my phone, my new phone, buzzed. Unknown number. Answer it, the agent said. Put it on speaker. Hello? You clever little bitch? Victoria's voice was venomous. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started. It's over, Victoria. Turn yourself in. Nothing's over. You...